Welcome to Complex Kids, Simple Solutions, the podcast where we cut through the chaos of raising a neurodivergent and a complex kid with a practical, no-nonsense strategy. I'm Michelle Shoaidi, speaker, advocate, and a mom of a complex kid myself. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, unheard, or just plain exhausted on this journey, you are not alone. Here we tackle the real struggles head on, share actionable insights, and remind you that small wins matter. Let's dive in and make life just a little bit easier, one episode at a time. You are your child's hero. We're so excited to have Elissa with us today. She is the Director of Families, Agencies, and Schools Together, which is called FAST program, at the Thompson Autism Neurodevelopmental Center at CHOC Children's Hospital of Orange County. Prior to beginning her role as Director of FAST, Elissa worked within the public school system for 17 years, 7 years as a school psychologist and 10 years as an administrator within special education. Elissa has experience in many areas, including special education assessments, inclusive practices, developing individual education plans, counseling, developing and implementing behavioral programs, autism, and other neurodevelopmental disabilities. Throughout Elissa's career, she has promoted a culture of inclusivity and advocated to support all students. We're so excited to have her here. Welcome, Elissa. We are so excited to have Elissa today. Elissa, thank you for coming. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming again. This is the second time she's here, and we love her.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. I love chatting with you. I feel like there's always good stuff that comes out of it. So I'm happy to do it. Happy to be back.
Yeah. Well, I just have to tell you that we've been talking for about 40 minutes and we're just now starting to actually get the recording going. So she's so great to talk to that I know that we're probably going to have her on again at some point because she knows so much. She has so much knowledge in all kinds of IEPs and things that are happening in the autism world. And since she comes from a multidisciplinary place, she knows. She's a wealth of knowledge. So we're so excited to have her. But one of the reasons why I wanted to have her here, and this was what we were going to do the last time, but we got into a totally different topic because she, like I said, she just knows so much. But the way that I met her was through the world of IEPs. And Drake was lucky to be able to go into this multi-specialty clinic that has really all levels of providers. And she is one of them there that helps with IEP. So I want you to tell us about your position and kind of what you do at the Thompson Center.
Yeah. So I'm the FAST director when FAST stands for Families, Agencies, and Schools Together. And it's, to me, a very unique position where it's a combination. I work for Chapman University. That's actually who writes my check, the Thompson Policy Institute, but I'm located here at the Thompson Autism and Neurodevelopmental Center full-time. And it's really to help families navigate the education system, help them understand the processes, help them understand the IEP, how to read it, if they have questions. Ultimately, the position was truly created because there's a lot of miscommunications in education. We got a lot of jargon. We use a lot of terms that if you did not go through training, don't make sense.
The acronyms,
yes.
Even IEPs and, SKIAs. And yeah. I mean, who understand these? I don't even know all of them. So yes.
It's alphabet soup. And, so there's so much out there, and a parent should not have to go to school for 6 years, 3 years, additional years after your, bachelor's degree to understand how to support their child. So Darn Cardinal, who kind of thought about the FAST position and truly started over even at CAND, UCI Center for Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disorders, was like, we really need someone who can go in there and help families, support families in understanding these processes, to understand how to navigate the education system, how to ask questions, and not necessarily have to go get an advocate or attorney to be able to question and to learn. Because a lot of times, if a family does go get an attorney or an advocate, communication shuts down. Teachers, psychologists, district personnel get more tied to, and I'd say tied to what the law is and making sure they're following the law to a T. And unfortunately, sometimes the law and what's best for the child don't line up. And so my role is to help parents navigate it, but also because I'm in a medical facility, is to take that information that the doctor's saying and bring it into education. And so a lot of times, there's these two worlds of education and, the medical world that don't really align and sometimes contradict itself. And sometimes, you need an interpreter to bring it in. And so in a sense, like I am there to bring in that medical piece to education because it is so crucial. And it's so crucial to understand these medical diagnoses and the multiple ones. Because even when you look at special education, normally you've got at least one handicapping condition on how they qualify. Sometimes if they identify a couple, they'll write them down. But underlying that eligibility is normally a lot of complex medical disorders. And so I think when you bring to a teacher, and even when I came to this position, you bring to a teacher, yes, a child may have autism, but he also has GI issues. He also has a sleep disorder. He also has ADHD. And I think of when I get hungry or have issues and have heartburn and you want me to work and to be pleasant, like, no.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And so it gives, I think, that other lens of how these comorbid conditions affect schooling. And so I think the districts and the schools that I've worked with, it's given that lens. But in addition to kind of like that family component and supporting schools, I try to help doctors understand. I try to help doctors. How can you give that information to the school and make it meaningful?
Yeah. And the other way around too, like how can you bring the school information into the doctor? And I have to tell you, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about Drake, because the way that we ran into this was exactly, we were going to the Center for Autism, Neurodevelopmental Disorders, and we met this amazing woman who really, like, I cannot tell you how much she was involved in Drake's case. She would, and that was her position. And I think that you are now the position. So, right? Like you guys.
Yeah. So we do a little bit. So Jean-Anne and I overlap or she was over at the Center for Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disorder. And then I was brought on here because she did do such an amazing job over there. What I do here looks a little bit different. Just in the sense that I do more of like the law enforcement transition programming. She did testing, really would do the independent education evaluations and things like that and really assessed more than what I do. And I think it really has to do with how the center utilizes, I would say, our position.
Yeah. But just going back to that, like that is when I learned how much you need a team around your child. Like, because she became such an advocate for Drake back then. And she did a lot of testing on Drake. She actually even saw him once a week just to see, how does he learn? How can I help him learn? And I mean, by the end of the time that she was with Drake, like she was sweating, because she's like running around the center trying to figure out like, a treasure hunt for him. But that was the way that Drake learned. And so, but that was when I found that you need somebody on your team, somebody on your side that knows the school system and also knows the medical system, because then you can bridge that, just like you were saying. Now, is this available everywhere, or is this a program that's just here in California that I was just so lucky to run into?
So to my knowledge, it's just really available here in California. I think, there are different companies coming out there to help parents navigate the system, but doesn't necessarily merge the medical piece with the education world. And I think it's so crucial because the medical world impacts the education world. And I mean, I would love, I had a student yesterday who, when I was speaking to the class at Chapman, who said, why isn't it required for like a special education or a general education teacher program to go to an autism center and understand what they look like? And he's like, we're right here. I mean, literally maybe a mile away from us is Chapman University. And he's like, why isn't it a required part where we come in and interview you guys to understand what, it may not be that individual child, but to understand what families are going through and what the child's going through. Because it's so crucial that I think that these worlds need to merge and need to understand how can we really support. And that's where I think, what I love about, the Thompson Autism Center is truly how we're a team supporting a family. How a family can be in a doctor's appointment and say, like, where my child's really struggling in school, I don't understand how they're supporting them. And instead of having to, yes, sometimes I have to make an appointment with them separately, but me being able to run up into that doctor's appointment and to support that family and give them the resource right there, I think makes such a difference versus like, okay, I got to call here. Now I got to go here. I got to do this. And where like you and I can chat and then I can update the doctor on like, hey, this is what they said in the IEP. This is what you need to know. Because the child's on medication and the medication's working or not working, let's send a rating scale to confirm that. And so there's more of that collaboration and more of that piece of like, how do we move this child to be successful in support with the school?
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's like, I have been so lucky to have had that. And I have learned probably a lot of what I know and what I teach because of these ladies, like because of this the program that you guys have. And when I look at what I'm trying to do with Thrive is actually get the parents to become that bridge, teach parents that they need to have this, that they are the ones that need to bridge the medical and the school, because without that, it's not going to be the best outcome for your child. You have to have both sides. And so that is kind of how Thrive came about in a way. Yeah. And I was lucky that I had you and I had Joanne that to help me bridge that. Now, is this available only for kids that are at the Thompson Autism Center for you? Or is this available for the community?
So I support, I'd say, Chalk Hospital. So primarily we're here at the center. So I'd say most of my referrals come from our doctors. But if like a Chalk physician or a Chalk social worker they do make referrals to me. And I would say like if an outside person from the community reaches out, I do my best to support. It's not necessarily the same. Like I don't go contact their doctors, but I would help talk to them and do a consultation. But besides, I would say myself, really the Thompson Policy Institute at Chapman University, they can reach out to them. So they can reach out to them, because what I would say is they, as the community provider, they support inclusion throughout education and transitional supports, is they are a resource. So and that's honestly where FAST came from. So whether they send it to me or one of the specialists at TPI would be able to support. So yes, they can reach out to me directly, but it's, I would say sometimes it's better to have that bridge as if it is that doctor making the referral, because then I can access the medical information, those things.
Yeah, for sure. But the knowledge that I guess, I want to come back to what you did and what was your role before this, so you are able to do what you do right now. So can you tell us a little bit about your history on how you got to this position?
Yeah. So I went to school to become a school psychologist, and I was working as a school psychologist, and my husband was going through hiring for a fire department I was up north when I went through schooling and worked first in Fremont. And my husband was going through the interview process for Monterey Fire up in Monterey, California. And, I told him, I was like, I can go anywhere. It's education. There's always school psychology positions open. And when I applied to Monterey, there was a school psychology position open, but in addition, they were looking someone who could build a program to support individuals with a handicapping condition of emotional disturbance. And so I was like, I ended up getting the position. Monterey, the fire department, went on a hiring freeze as I was getting the job. But so we moved. We moved to Monterey.
Perfect timing.
I know. We moved to Monterey, and my husband was commuting to the Bay Area to work. But what happened in Monterey is I was able to start building programs, and loved it. Really was able to get in there, oversaw a program, and in this program development, after I think it was 2 years, they're like, "Oh, you need an administrative credential if you want to keep this position." And so I was like, okay, I'll get my administrative credential. This program is my baby. I worked with some amazing teachers. We did so many amazing things. And it was really kindergarten through high school, a continuation of a program. We were the regional program. So other districts were sending their children there. And so I got my administrative credential, and I did that. I kind of moved from a program specialist to a coordinator position there and started overseeing more programs. And then my husband was like, let's move to Southern California. And so I was like, okay, and I think that's the nice thing about working for a district is you can be mobile. I mean, you don't want to move around a lot, but, so I started looking at different positions. Mental health was a huge passion of mine, actually. Towards the end of my time in Monterey, I was overseeing their autism programs, and I loved it. I loved the population. But as when I came down to Southern California, it was interesting because you didn't have program specialists or coordinators that kind of just oversaw single programs. But I wasn't necessarily aware of that. And so I ended up going to Newport Mesa as a special ed coordinator. And instead of building programs, I was really interfacing with a lot of attorneys, advocates. I ultimately was the person who sat at the table when things weren't going right. If somebody wasn't happy, parents, and it typically was a parent who wasn't happy, and trying to figure out, how do we navigate this? And I feel like, my time in Newport Mesa, we had a really strong coordinator group, and was very honestly fortunate to work with the women I worked with. And we all had a very common philosophy and a common, what's in the best interest of the child. And that was our view, not necessarily the parents, the teachers, but this child. We want to see this child succeed. And where is it that, what does this child need? And so I worked in that role, I think 7 years, it may have been 8 years, but for a long time. But it's also draining. It's draining to be that person when you come to the table that nobody really wants there.
Yes, exactly. Nobody wants to be there.
No.
Like, it's the parent who doesn't want to be there, is ready to like come at the district, right? And then the person, and then it's you trying to mediate that whole thing and trying to see, and you know, that's, I can see how that would be such a not fun place to be
and it's, I mean, because you know, the teachers, when you're walking into the meeting, they're like, oh gosh, this is going to be even harder. And I mean, and I feel for parents, because I think in my role, and I think the longer I was in that role, I was able to, I don't want to say get rid of attorneys, but parents fired their attorneys. They fired their advocates because they knew that, like, I was there because I wanted their child to succeed, and they, you know, so they could see it. So I was able to navigate, you know, that with families to where they didn't feel like they needed to have the attorney come to every meeting. But it wasn't an overnight thing. I mean, it took years.
You have to build that relationship. You have to. So, you know, coming from the parent perspective, right? For me, like, I was that parent that was like, I would, you know, I didn't know what the hell an IEP was to start with. And then you come to a table and you're already expecting the worst, because that's what you've heard, that that's how it is. And then you don't know what you're talking about. So you're going into it and people are telling you about what your child cannot do. And it's devastating to you. And you are in there and you're going, how the hell am I going to help my child progress? And just that, you know, being in there and being in that situation is an awful feeling for the parent. Now, having somebody who actually cares makes such a difference to the parent. I want to say something, because this is, Elissa went with me to, I think we were debating on what we were going to do with Drake. And we knew that the school that he was at, they were not going to be able to support him the way that he needed to be supported. And then, but we needed to find a school where he would get that support. And we needed to pull him from that school, even though the teachers were amazing, the school was amazing, and they were amazing towards Drake, and Drake loved that school. The issue was that they could not support him the way that he needed to be supported. So we, with and without the district, I went and I made a list of the schools that we needed to go see, because I wasn't going to wait for the school district, because that's just who I am. So, and I contacted the schools, and Elissa helped me, and she came with me to the majority of these schools to help me, like, and she would ask questions, and she really put them on a spot, because sometimes as a parent, you're so like, I don't even know what to ask. I don't know how to do this. And she helped so much. And so I owe her a lot. And what I'm saying is that if you can find one, and Elissa, in your life, it will make your life so much easier. And so, but you know, that shows you, like, the amount of care that she puts into your child. And so now, like you were saying, it develop, you have to get into that, because most of the parents are guarded, because they have been screwed over and over again, you know, because the school district, it's unfortunate, but the school district is going to provide the minimum that they can because of funds or whatever it is that or maybe they just don't know. And unless the parent becomes that advocate for their child, along with and using the resources that they have, it's not they're gonna be stagnant for the whole entire time that they're in school. Now,
and I think, but what I would also say is that, like, I would tell some of these parents, like, you are their advocate. Like, this is your one. I have, hundreds across the district, but this is your one child. So, like, that is your role. And I think because I truly, and I now believe, like, they need to be empowered. What I think I noticed then and I notice now is sometimes parents will request some things, but as you talk it out and as you dive deeper, what they're requesting is not exactly what they want. And so a lot of times in my role I'll discuss that. And so sometimes what they're requesting from the district, but when you actually get down to the root of it, it's not that request that they're getting denied. It's something different. And so trying to express that and trying to share that with the school makes that difference of like, oh, okay, yes, we can provide that,
Sure. Yeah. Now, how being at the center, I'm sure that you get referrals all the time from the doctors. How often are parents actually taking advantage of having you in there as a part of the team?
I would say more frequently. I'd probably 75% of the time. We do schedule consultations frequently that parents don't answer, and then I don't hear back from, and then sometimes I'll hear back from those parents when they're then in crisis. And in the crisis, I mean, like, there's things going wrong, child's getting sent home from school. And so it's making more of that significant impact, to where they do need guidance. But, I would say about 75% of the time my consults go through, 25% they don't answer. But I would say about 30%, maybe 40 are pretty simple. Very, one time, here's the process. Parents have my information to follow up with questions. And to me, I say simple because it's an easy answer. It's not something where I need to go read the entire IEP. I need to dive in and read the psych report and read all the documentation to answer their questions.
Sure.
So, I mean, trust me, there's ones where I'm spending hours and comparing, like, okay, where did these goals, did they make progress on the goals? Gosh. Is this goal compared to it? What actual program are they using? So I would
say
Drake
was one of those. Yes. Drake was that for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think there's ones where I'm like, I need more information. Because sometimes I'll read things, I'm like, this IEP looks great, but I didn't know these are the same goals that they carried over for the last 2 years. So sometimes it is asking more questions, but I do also have some where I read an IEP and they're like, I just need to know I can trust what they're doing. So parents need that reassurance of like, okay, the IEP is good. And, when I read an IEP, I'm not nitpicky of like, this is, here's your grammar. You made a mistake on your grammar. For me, like, what is the intention of the goal? Can you collect data on it? So can a parent even like visualize how they're working on this goal? And then how is it being reported? You're not going to write in specific programs because it gets too confined, but you do want to know. And you and I had the talk about like a while ago about like, was the program done with fidelity, or was it a piecemeal program where they pulled from 5 different things? And then you're like, well, we can't say the program didn't work because you didn't actually do the program.
Yes.
So trying to like walk families through some of those things is great. And I think the other piece, and you said, you kind of touched on it a minute ago, is that you're at an IEP table with experts and you don't have that same knowledge in that area, And so I think sometimes some of my consults is confirming the parent's feeling, is saying like, you may not have that expertise, but you are right. Like, let's ask more questions on this goal. Let's ask a different way. Or maybe I don't really understand what the goal is saying. And I've been in education for 20 plus years, have them explain it, or let's rewrite it so it is makes sense.
Yes.
And ultimately that, like, when I read an IEP, I want to know what happened in the meeting, like what occurred, what are you working on, like, and how are you working on it? Because you ultimately should be able to take that IEP. A parent should understand it. We shouldn't have so much jargon that a parent can't understand the document. But also, if the kid moves, they go to another district that says, I know what they were doing.
Yes. Yeah. So. And that's the important part about an IEP, right? It is a team effort. Like, they cannot implement certain things on the IEP unless the parent is okay with it. So it has to be a combination. It has to be a team coming together for the benefit of the child. And honestly, like, sometimes as a parent, I felt like the school district was against me a lot of times. And that, when that happened with me, when it got to a point where the communication wasn't as great as it could have been anymore, or like they just kind of dismissed certain things that I was talking about, or what I was asking wasn't being met, and Drake wasn't making progress, and nothing that they were doing was really actually working. That was when I actually found Joanne, because we went into the independent evaluation. So that's how I met her. But from then on, I needed that support, because I didn't know as a parent what to do. I didn't know what an IEE entailed. I didn't know any of those things. And being that parent sitting there, not knowing, with somebody who has been doing this for 20, 30 years and looking at you and going, duh, this is how we do things, without really truly explaining things. But when it got to a point with Drake in the relationship with the district, that I said, you guys are not listening anymore. And nothing that you're doing is actually working. So it's time for me to get somebody to help me. And we did hire an attorney. We did do that. And that's how we got Drake out of the school district into a non-public school. But I couldn't have done that without help from somebody else saying, what they're doing is not right. It's not helping. So you truly need to find another place to go to. And having somebody back you on that was probably the most important thing, because I was already feeling that. I had that mama gut going on, like, this is not working. Yeah. But I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And that's when you come in and you have these people who are able to help you come in. And so
there are families that I work with now, and I would say before, where I read it and I take them as far as I can, and I can support them, and I try to help bridge the communication and help it. And unfortunately, I would say there are times where I'm like, I did all I can do. Yes, you need to now, like, this is a time where you do need an attorney. I think my hard piece is there's some families where I've done that and they've gotten attorneys, and the attorneys have unraveled literally everything the parent and I worked collaboratively with the district to do. and then I'm like looking at it going, like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yes.
So to me, I'm like, you got to find, like, there's good and bad, everything. There's good and bad, everything out there. Like, you've got great attorneys and you have terrible attorneys. And so it's finding those good attorneys or those good advocates that can help move the pendulum in certain ways. And so, there were some times when I worked with certain families where it was like, this is what the law confines me to. Because also when you work for a district, you are confined by the law. You can't be creative. You can't think out of the box. You can't look at it. And so be like, okay, this is what I recommend as the next step. I would even say like, let's go to ADR. Let's go to ADR and get this out of an IEP, because then we can be more creative. We can then try to put the child's needs and how they progress ahead of yours. And I think the hard piece with special education is like, it's not looking at like the Cadillac of services. We're a Ford. But you can make it a fancy Ford. So with creative,
we cannot be a BMW. We cannot be a Lamborghini. All right.
Right. Let's maybe go like Lexus. I don't know. Yeah. I don't even know what the higher end of Ford is, but
I don't know.
A Mustang. I don't know. I like how I'm using a car analogy and I know nothing about cars.
I know, love it.
But so I think it's like trying to figure out, and I even tell some of my parents, you find those champions within the school site. So there will be those personalities that you just conflict with, that's natural and that's everywhere. And I think sometimes as long as it's not affecting your child's progress, okay, deal with that personality conflict, but also try to reach out. Your teams typically are pretty large and it can be very intimidating, but find someone in that team who can also be your champion and understand where you're coming from of like, trying to put your child's best interests, not just being, because parents I talk to, like, I don't want to be labeled as a pain. I don't want to be this troublemaker. I don't want to be the one that they dread seeing. And I'm like, that's okay if you are. Like, that's okay. But find someone on that team who sees what you see in your child. Who can be that champion. And I actually think, Michelle, you do a great job of like finding those people for your son. Like you really do. You do. I mean, you are, I mean, if anybody can do it, you can do it. I crack up. You can get into places where like, it's only supposed to be talking to school districts. Like, I love it.
Well, here's the thing. Like, one of the things that I have learned through this is that, and it could be that it's my sales background that comes into this a little bit, but you do have to find the people who are on your side. If you are going to try to sweet talk somebody who is not on your side, and like, that's just not going to work. You can sometimes do that, but it's going to take you a lot longer. So you got to go for the people who are on your side. And you explain, like, I'm an open book when it comes to everything in my life. Like, I tell people I am an open book. And the reason why I am is because you make yourself vulnerable enough that the other people that are around you, they see that. And that is how you make connections with people, is being, we're talking vulnerability here, but it's true. Like, that is how you make connections in life. And when you say, I am just trying to do what's best for my child, and I have gone through all of these, and these are the feelings that I have, and all of this, and you share that with somebody who can actually help you, trust me, they are going to help you. And so it's being vulnerable. It's being open. It's like following what I call the mama gut really will take you to meet these people, to bring your child and make your child the most important part of the IEP, of the medical part of the therapies that he's receiving. So but that is a thing that you have to learn how to do that. You have to learn how to speak to the school districts. You have to learn that things have to be in writing. You have to learn that there's, just how to request these things. And that it really is like almost going to school for, 2, 3, 4 years. I feel like I've been in school, I've been learning, and I'm still learning with what I'm going through with Drake right now. And so these are the things that parents unless you have an Elissa, unless you have a Joanne, and even if you do, it's on the parent to be their child's advocate. And it's finding those people, it's finding that teamwork that will help you give your child what they need. I think we've been going for about 40 minutes, and I want to ask you, plus the 40 minutes that we did before. But honestly, like Elissa and I think that we could talk all day long, because really, like, there's so much information, and we exchange information, we talk to each other, and really, like, I appreciate her so much because she still helps us. This is the other thing. She is in every IEP that I ask her to be. And like, that is honestly, like, there is nothing better for a parent to be able to know that there's somebody there who knows everything about your child that is also on your side. They are on your side. So I want to thank Elissa, because she really, truly has been an amazing person in my team, in Drake's team. And when I say my team, because I need a team also as a mom. Drake needs a team. But as a mom, I need a community. I need somebody to make me feel like I am doing the right thing also. So thank you for what you do. Really, like, I really appreciate that. And I think that what you're doing is amazing. And I really wish that it wasn't just in California, and that it wasn't really just here, because I feel like every special needs parent out there deserves this. They deserve to have this kind of a program in their area. So I always ask, what are your last words of wisdom for the parents that are listening right now?
So I think there's really, I would say, two things. Is don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't get it. Ask the why. Try to understand, especially the goals and the accommodations that are being implemented. So ask those why. Make sure you can walk away with an understanding and kind of confirm that understanding. Check. And I always say checked understanding. So like, is this what I heard you say? The other pieces, and I say, take home the IEP, read it. Don't sign in attendance. Yes, you sign in attendance, but take it home and read it. I can tell you I'm an educational rights surrogate for several foster children, and I don't ever sign an IEP in the meeting. And the reason is because I want to ensure my understanding that I walked away with is what's on paper. And I have that opportunity to say, I thought you said this. I thought this. Oh, I didn't hear that. Can you clarify? Because I want to know what I'm signing is what I understood. And sometimes it's just that matter of like, we had different understandings of what was said, and not that one was bad and one was good. It's just different. And so you're ensuring you walk away with that same level of understanding. And if it's not, to get that clarification.
Sure.
There's no harm in ever asking why. And I think I also would say, give the teams a little grace, because they do a lot of these. And so unfortunately, you may be, this may be your one a year IEP, but they've done 30 others, or they may have done 3 that day. And so they're going through it a little bit faster. And so if you need to say, can you slow down? Don't hesitate to ask it, because I think the intention of a special ed teacher, of a school psychologist, is them wanting to support you. They just at times need to be reminded, like, hey, this isn't like a conveyor belt, but like I need to understand what's going on. And most of the time when I've seen that happen, they then actually feel a little bad, because they're like, oh gosh, I'm sorry. Like, let me go explain this a little bit better. So I think in that sense, don't ever hesitate to even slow down the meeting and say, I don't get it, and ask those questions. Or if you're too intimidated to ask in the meeting, you can ask after. So know that you have that space.
Sure. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I know for a fact that I'm going to have you on again because we can always talk. The wealth of knowledge that this woman has, like we could talk for hours and I would learn every single time. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
That's it for today's episode of Complex Kids, Simple Solutions. If you found this helpful, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And if you're looking for more support, join our Thrive group on Facebook, where we dive deeper and connect with other parents. For more information, be sure to visit www.wisdom4complexkids.com. Or you can also reach me at www.michelleshoaidi.com. Remember, you are doing an amazing job. Take it one step at a time, and I will see you next time. You are your child's hero.